you have to study every night.
Okay, so we don't do chapter tests. Let me step back into the camera. We don't do chapter tests. I think a lot of you guys may be used to, you cover a chapter, you take a test, you cover a chapter, you take a test. Our test covers, at the minimum, 2 to 3 chapters on the minimum side, okay? On the maximum, sometimes you can have about 5 chapters on a test. Anybody else want advice? Good advice so far. Yes, Nina?
Yeah, like Rhea said, it's really important that you study at least at the minimum, like a week before you have a test, because like especially quizzes are counting the same amount as tests in this class. So if you get a bad grade on a quiz, it's like the exact same way it would be if you got a bad grade on a test. So
Tell them how much tests and quizzes are weighted.
35% of your grade. So if you get a bad grade on a quiz, it's the same amount as if you get a bad grade on a test.
Yeah, and classwork, homework only counts 10%. So I know maybe in middle school you're giving kudos and check marks and smiley faces when you do your classwork homework. But in high school, the expectation is that you do your classwork homework at the minimum. We really test you more so when it comes to tests, and that's 35% of your grade. Midterm final exam is 10%, so right there, 45% of your grade comes from testing, and then the EOCT is 20%. So a lot of your grade is based on doing well on tests. And so usually your average in the class mimics usually about where you are on the test, or maybe a little bit below where you are on the test. Arba. Yeah.
You have to make sure you can apply your knowledge, because it's more than just memorizing. You actually have to understand what you're learning so that you can like apply it. But for the short answer questions, it's not like stuff that you memorize from your notes. Something you actually have to put all the stuff you learned together so that you can answer the question.
Do we do vocab tests? No. Okay, so do I expect you to know the vocab? Yes. Okay. What they're referring to is a lot of the questions on my test have the vocab in it. So if you don't know what the word means, then you probably will not be able to answer the question or even understand what the question is asking. But no, we do not give vocab quizzes and vocab tests in my class. Okay. What about labs? Anybody want to talk about labs in here? Okay, your time.
Yeah, so for labs, basically just know this. You need to follow instructions as they are and do not try to deviate from them unless you ask for screening first. Because oftentimes the lab will be perfectly spelled out for you, you'll know what you need to do, and it'll tell you how to do it. But, and you know, going off of that, you'll mess up results, and then your entire lab will be compromised, and basically just follow the instructions.
Do I read instructions to you guys?
No.
Do I answer what to do next? No. Okay, so you are very much independent in my class. It is student driven, meaning the teacher is not holding your hand. I really kind of give the assignment. I may give some explanation. Because it's an advanced gifted class, there is an expectation that you have the ability to figure some things out on your own. If you get off track, I'll put you back on the right road, but I'm not going to show you how to get there necessarily, okay? So a lot of the advanced gifted kids, it really pushes their abilities. By the end of the class, they are definitely better and stronger students, but you do have to develop some study habits in high school, especially for my biology class. If you think you can come in and never crack a book open or try to crack the book open the night before, in all honesty, you will bomb my test. Does everybody agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Just making sure I wasn't out there by myself. All right, any questions from you guys?
Yeah, Camille.
What kind of, like, how do you guys study? What are some study methods that you guys prefer?
Okay, Nina, good question.
What I do, I make flashcards with like, it'll have not very broad, but like just went over like meiosis, so I would have like meiosis on a card and it would have a lot of the information on the back, and I did that for a lot, and I would color code all my notes. And if you go back and annotate the notes that you took in class in the screen review list, it really helps to like further your understanding. And what I just started doing, if you look up YouTube videos with like connections to what you went over in class, and that helps a lot too.
When you say annotate, you may want to explain to them what annotate means.
And when you go through and like highlight and make little notes to yourself and like, it's like, make, yeah, just like color code and highlight and note and just like make sure you understand. It's just to like further your understanding with your notes.
Also, if you take a lot of practice quizzes, both in the book and online, those are really helpful. Like just like whatever subject area you're studying, you just look them up, and there are a bunch of them there. Those are really helpful. Also, if you rewrite your notes, that's pretty helpful too, because I know when I take notes, they're really messy and kind of hard to understand. So if you like rewrite them, it helps with like your understanding of them too.
Do I go fast or slow through my PowerPoints?
Fast.
Very, very fast. Do not write everything. There is expectation that the students have at least looked at the chapter before I start giving notes, or I've been exposed to the content. So they should have some type of outline or something written down in their notebook already, where they're just kind of adding to based on the things that I'm talking about. But yes, I go through my slides very quickly. So you definitely want to come to class at least with some idea of what we're talking about, because if you're trying to write down every single thing you see on the PowerPoint, you won't have the time. Okay, we don't have the time because we go through a lot of content in a very small amount of time in the class. Class goes by very fast, even though we have 90 minutes. And we lost 2 weeks on top of that, so we were going in super high. Okay. Any other questions? Good question.
Yes, Joe.
Or anyone want to add to
Joe.
your study habit? Study method? Say that louder. Did you guys hear him?
Yeah.
Okay, study groups strongly encouraged. Study groups, sometimes students will meet just in my classroom just to have a location, or just to sometimes have me around to ask questions when they come across something. Or they may do it at someone's house or at someone's restaurant or Starbucks or something like that. But make sure that your study group doesn't become an opportunity for you just to meet and talk. It needs to be a group that's productive, and it needs to be a group no more than 3 or 4. Because when you go past 4, it definitely becomes less productive. But in the past, I don't know if it happened this year, but in the past, I've had students even create Facebook pages for my class to talk things out. And we also use Edmodo a lot, where students are able to reach out to me, and they also are able to reach out to each other to have study group sessions or ask quick questions here and there. Any other study methods or habits? Don't what? Procrastination, yeah. That is something that students learn the hard way. They learn that the hard way. A lot of times on the first test, due to procrastination, or they ask themselves, how hard can it really be? Or how hard can this test really be? And then they take the first test, and reality sets in. What did you say, Patrick? Or your tongue? It's extremely hard. I tell my students it's my job to make it sound easy when I talk about it in class, but at the end of the day, you are taking the test, and the reality of the test and the amount of information we cover hits them after they actually have the first test in front of them. So procrastination, yeah, that's a hard lesson to learn, but most students learn it at least by the first test, and they haven't learned it by the first, they learn it definitely by the second. Right?
Yeah.
You'll walk out of the class after a test feeling good, saying, oh, I think I nailed that. You'll get it back at 60 or 70.
Yeah, and that is not abnormal, that's actually normal, okay? And it's not because the students are not smart enough. It goes back to procrastination, not spending time wisely, not knowing how to study for this level of class at this point, still doing a lot of memorization versus understanding. But after a while, they start to see their test grades go up. Is that true? Yeah. Okay. So they don't stay at 60s and 70s, but yeah, in the beginning, just because they're learning how to be a high school student, we do see that kind of regularly. Any other questions?
Yes, Joe.
Yes.
Do you like the bridge schedule?
What a science teacher because even with 90 minutes, they'll tell you we run out of time most of the time, especially when it comes to labs. So 90 minutes really helps science teachers a lot. Also, you're only managing 4 classes versus 7. I think some of them, unfortunately, had me and Mr. Ritchie at the same time, which is your English teacher. But if you were on a 7-period schedule, in all honesty, you would have, no matter what, me and Mr. Ritchie at the same time, plus all your other advanced gifted classes, and that would be definitely stress overload. So with block, at least you only have 2 core classes most times to have to worry about, maybe sometimes 3 core classes.
Can I talk about having Richie and Green?
Yeah, you talk about Richie and Greenwood at the same time.
Things you need to know. Prioritize things. Do not procrastinate. If you procrastinate, you will end up it is insanely hard to make an A in those classes. It's extremely hard. I'm at high B's in both, and so you'll learn that you need to prioritize everything. If you have a lab due tomorrow and then you have a written paper due in 2 days, make sure that you do the lab while also working on the paper. You need to multitask, prioritize everything. It'll be extremely difficult, and most of you will probably not prepare for it.
It's fun though.
Yes.
I like it.
I will say this, if you can avoid having me and Richie at the same time, I do encourage that. But can it be done, having me and Richie at the same time? It can, but it will be some sleepless nights. There will be some sleepless nights. Yeah. Many sleepless nights, yes. Any other questions or anything else you guys want to share?
When you're in like the gifted classes,